welcome to Political Lens on Voice of the People Television, VOP. Now, today is February 14, 2025. It's also Happy Valentine's Day to you, our viewer at home. We encourage you to love and enjoy responsibly. Now, on the show today, we'll dig deep into the 54.99 trillion naira budget passed into law by the Nigerian National Assembly. Now, before we get into the discussions, kindly click on the button and subscribe to our YouTube channel on Voice of the People Television. On other social media platforms, we are at VOP TV Live. You also visit our website, www.vop.ng, for trending stories. Above all, you can also be a part of this conversation by calling in or sending WhatsApp messages to the number showing on your screen. Now, the number is 0904-473-2605. Let's bring in our guests. We are joined from our Benin station by Mr. Ibrahim Momo. Mr. Momo is a lecturer in the Department of Political Science, and he's also a political affairs commentator. We'll also be joined from our Oka station by Mr. Chuka Nabuife. Mr. Nabuife is the Managing Director of Anambra State Civic and Social Reformation Office. Gentlemen, thanks for coming to the show. Good evening to you, Mr. Ibrahim Momo. Oh, Chuka, you're already there. Good evening to you, Chuka.
Good evening, Chukuma.
Very well. Happy Valentine.
Same to you. I can see the touch of red.
Okay, thank you very much. Incidentally, it was just a coincidence. I didn't even know when I wore the shirt. All right, then. Okay, now let's get into the show. The National Assembly on Thursday passed the 54.99 trillion naira budget, for the 2025 fiscal year. The budget was passed simultaneously by both chambers of the National Assembly after due consideration. The passage of the bill followed a recent revision by President Bola Tinubu, who raised the budget from an initial 49.7 trillion naira to 54.2 trillion naira. Curiously, the actual figure passed by the National Assembly is 54.99 trillion naira, representing an additional 700 billion naira for the adjusted figure of 54.2 trillion naira. While Nigerians have raised concerns about the increase in the budget figure, the National Assembly defended its approval of the budget and said that it followed legislative reviews that identified additional revenues from key government agencies. Now, the expanded budget provides significant funding for critical sectors, including 1.5 trillion naira for the Bank of Agriculture, 500 billion naira for the Bank of Industry, 1 trillion naira for the Ministry of Solid Minerals, and 1.5 trillion naira for a renewable infrastructure fund. Other allocations include 300 billion naira for road construction, 400 billion naira for rail transport, 380 billion naira for water resources and irrigation and dam projects, 250 billion naira for military barracks renovation, 120 billion naira for new military aviation projects, and 50 billion naira for border security agencies. Where there are concerns over inadequate rail infrastructure funding for the Southeast, which were raised during the defense, but lawmakers clarified that such projects are largely financed through public-private partnership, PPPs. Now, the 2025 budget prioritizes rail development in Lagos, Ogun, Kaduna, and Kano, with further discussions ongoing for the Southeast projects. Experts have also raised concerns about the absence of fiscal responsibility, which makes evaluation of budget performance very difficult in Nigeria. Now, Chuka, you've heard everything. Now, let's get into it. How come I want you to help us understand. The initial budget proposal sent in sometime last year was 49.7 trillion naira. Later this year, at the beginning of this year, the president jacked it up to 54.2 trillion naira. Yes, 54.2 trillion naira. But yesterday, we just realized that it was 54.99 trillion naira, an additional 700 billion naira that was passed. Does the National Assembly, without making recourse to the executive, do they have the right to jack up that figure? Does it look like there's some kind of padding? Because you also understand that the National Assembly got a humongous 385 billion naira for their own budget. How do you explain that to the average listener at home, the average viewer at home?
The question you asked is, how do you explain it to the average citizen? That's where I'm going to take it. To explain it to the average citizen is even more simple than how to explain it to politicians. You understand? And I want to tell you one thing. even if you saw that budget when they passed it, yes, it is in trillions, 49 point one initially trillion. If you looked at that budget, you find out that there was nothing in that budget. Even with the markup that we had, as we saw yesterday, you begin to find out that it was built on the benchmark that we are going to be getting some. We're getting up to we'll get up to 335 point something trillion. That yesterday, oil started falling. Oil started falling in price. So how do you meet your benchmark? And if you look at the appropriations, you begin to worry. What are we really appropriating in the budget? In the 2025 budget, you find out that we had 10% for defense infrastructure and the infrastructure, defense and security. Then another 10%, near 10% for infrastructure. Then agriculture, 3.5, which is about, let's say 70%. Then you begin to what are those things that are in education, which came next, and then healthcare? What are the things that were the main planks of that? The things that were the main planks were actually basic things. And it will look like we were just beginning. When you look at the budget as it was, as the appropriations, if they break it down, what you will tell yourself is just, what is this going to achieve? And we have looked at the economy, it's not helping things. Three things are also making things very difficult for economies like Nigeria. Currently, there is the Trump government in the US makes things unpredictable for a lot of nations, including Nigeria. Currently, the situation with the wars, be the one in Israel, and that is the Gaza, and the one in Ukraine. The situation with them, none of them bodes well for economy. For example, the situation with the war in Ukraine is actually influencing the drop in oil prices. And you know what will happen to economies like Nigeria. So there are a lot of things that will inspire fear. Even with the markup that they approved yesterday, to our surprise. Because if you look politically, you would have expected some processes to have been gone through. Even with that, the appropriations you just mentioned, basic education, is that where we're going to make money? And Bank of Industry, that is grants. Yes, it will make money in a longer run, but not in the immediate. Do you understand?
Okay.
When you look at it, you feel that the appropriation is where it is wrong. Not even the amount is insufficient, but the appropriation does not give much.
All right. So, Mr. Nabife, there's a very critical issue that you touched on now that I want us to untie. It's more like a puzzle because it has held us down for a very long time. You talked about what I call the vagaries of the international politics, the international market. I mean, because there's war in Ukraine, between Ukraine and Russia, there is the Middle East crisis, and it's going to impact our oil. For how long should our economy be tied to the dynamics of international politics? What if we didn't have oil?
That's exactly the thing, the problem people like you and I should be highlighting. And that is where I have a worry. I don't have a worry with the extra appropriation. I don't have a worry with the markup that is there. Because the markup, if you look at it realistically, we are not achieving much. If you look at the economy and how that, we won't achieve much. But we keep leaving ourselves to the vagaries of external forces, like international politics, like things we can't control. We should, by now, a nation like Nigeria of its stature and of its nature, should by now have had some stability with things it can do. Whether we have oil or not, countries that don't even have oil are far better than us because they are planning. Human resources is a big economic boost to some nations. We have human capital, but how are we using it? Agriculture is a big boost to many economies, but every year we keep funneling money into agriculture and we don't see the result.
Okay, Chuka, talking about agriculture, one of the provisions is that 1.5 trillion naira was budgeted for, earmarked for the Bank of Agriculture. How much of that will impact the development of the agriculture sector? 1.5 trillion naira. With what is going on around the farm states, farmers are not going to farm. Are farmers able to access loans? We also have 500 billion naira for the Bank of Industry. Particularly, I think we've had problems with giving soft loans, one-digit loans to farmers. And in the end, is it actually farmers that receive these loans? And what has become of these loans? I mean, 1.5 trillion naira. What can that do for the agri sector to feed the nation?
It will do a lot if managed well.
Okay.
But I have taken a cursory look on the budgets of some states. And I find this a big dwell on agriculture. And I begin to ask myself, even if a paltry amount from these appropriations do get to the right people who do agriculture, would have been better. That you should also know that there is one big elephant in the room in the issue. What is it? Security. If you don't tackle the security situation, if you don't tackle defense and other related things around it, you find out that still, even if you give money to the farmers, they will have an alibi. They will have excuses to give why they couldn't recoup the money and give you your capital. Also, there's a problem with how these appropriations are done. They are mostly seen as party largesse. Even the people who are disbursing it, they're mostly seen as patrimonies. They're mostly seen as dispensary, things that are given to loyal people. Meanwhile, in every venture, I've not seen anybody whose car is bad and he seeks a mechanic that is from his village only. He goes for the person that can repair it. If we want to get farmers to farm and get us food security, we will look at those who are farmers. And most people who are serious professionals in any country, anywhere, are not given, they don't have enough time to do politics. And that is our problem. Our problem is in the plan. Our problem is in the implementation, not even in the fund. The fund is not enough compared to serious nations. But even with that, we don't even give it to the farmers. We don't also give them the incentive, even when we give to the people, to the farmers. Do we give the incentives that are going to make the farming yield a good dividend in the sense of preparing the crops, preparing the land, and preparing for the seasons? We don't. We tend to, everything about agriculture is political. We tend to do things geographically. I was in South Korea sometime in 2010. And one of the things we went to see in Incheon is the town where they have their international airport. I saw a place where we have not more than portions of one, let's say one plot, our own equivalent of one plot. But they use what we call wire gauze here, and then to build decks of vegetable farms, all manner of vegetables. You know that what one plot yields a farmer there, because I asked the questions that I saw there.
Okay.
Improved variety, species of crops. All right. What one plot yields a farmer there, 10 acres, or let me just say 5 acres, don't yield it to our own farmers. And they are controlled. Okay. Immediately, within that environment, they have they store the
All right then.
harvest.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Okay. All right. Chuka,
these
Chuka, we
are
are running out of time. Let's talk about the southeast. One of the provisions of this budget is the deployment of light rail in parts of Nigeria. And curiously, surprisingly, Southeast was left out again. And when lawmakers were asked, they said, look, these things are PPP, public-private partnerships. And let me ask, does it look like the Southeasterners are not interested in partnering, in partnership to build rail lines, for their states? Is it that they were approached and they refused, or what do you think could be the explanation? This isn't the first time Buhari administration built red lines, and they excluded Southeast, and we are seeing that again in this administration. What does that tell you? Is the problem with the central government, or is it the problem of the regional governments?
Of politics, of politicians. My brother, the mindset of a typical Southeasterner is that that is not where you should be starting from for them. I hope you're getting me. The short is, there are people who believe that originally is an afterthought to think of the rail line and then look for their partnership. Because initially, during Buhari's era, the issue of the rails and not the rest, the East didn't feature much. They didn't even feature in that calculation. And that mindset, mind you, a person who is going to partner with you, he will make gains, mind you, it's business. But he will also have to put in his money. If he feels that you are not genuinely interested, or you are genuinely interested in him, but you may not be genuinely affectionate to him, he's likely to have a little cold feet. So if there is any cold feet, although I will advise Easterners to explore that opportunity. Business is business.
Okay. All right. Chuka, we are costing home now. I think we have like 2 minutes left. I would like for you to touch on the budget of Changing Gears 2.0 in Anambra State. How is it performing? Changing Gears 1.0, how did it perform? Before we start talking about 2.0, that's the Anambra State budget of 2024. How did it go?
Well, that's why the state is returning the Changing Gears and moving it to 2.0.
Okay.
The Changing Gears is strongly on infrastructure, strongly on human capital development, strongly on building human resources, strongly on economic development. When you say economic development, it is not just about the structures or whatever, but there are initiatives, policies, and practices and forms of practices that will help the economy grow, whether in the long run or in the immediate. Right. That is it. Okay. So it is also heavy on education. Changing Gear is heavy on education. Changing Gear is heavy on things Anambra like commerce.
All right, then. Thank you very much, Mr. Chuka Nnabuife. Now, this is where we have to wrap up the conversation. We've been speaking with Mr. Chuka Nnabuife, who is the managing director of Anambra State Civic and Social Reformation Office. Yes, Anambra State Civic and Social Reformation Office. Ancestral. But Chuka, thanks for coming to this show. It's a big pleasure speaking with you. And well, I am Chukwuma Okoro, and to our viewers at home and Nigerians, please enjoy the rest of your evening and have a lovely weekend. Bye for now. Political Lens returns same time on Monday, 6 to 7 p.m. Thanks for joining us, and bye for now. Hello, Pa.